Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for your patience. I want to call everybody together to brief you on a couple of very important matters in the district. And I wanted to first start by talking about synthetic drugs. I issued a statement over the weekend talking about a dangerous spike in overdoses as a result of the use of synthetic drugs. The spike has led to dozens of people being transported to area hospitals and because they've had an overdose of these synthetic drugs. And we expect that many more cases are going unreported and untreated. Synthetic marijuana is a potent and dangerous hallucinogen, and it has been found in retail establishments throughout the District of Columbia, including liquor stores and gas stations. The products are commonly referred to as K2. You know, I'm not that familiar. So K2, Scooby Snacks, Bizarro, and Spice. So use of these drugs by young people is particularly dangerous. The effects of consuming these products include an altered mental state, paranoia, irregular heartbeat, and death. The drugs can render a person incoherent, disorderly, and unconscious. So my administration is working with the relevant agencies in the government, community organizations, and the Council of the District of Columbia to crack down on the distribution and consumption of these dangerous synthetic drugs. Our message is clear that synthetic drugs are illegal, dangerous, and present a clear and present danger to the District of Columbia and its residents. So we will be finalizing some language and talking to members of the council about legislative fixes that we think are necessary to crack down on the sale and use of synthetic drugs. So we will announce the details of this initiative in the coming days. So, on to the great news. I am pleased to announce, and I would like to invite the members of the council to join me at the podium. And I would like to announce, to invite the members of DC United's team to join us. And I would like to invite the members of my economic development team to also join us. As I say proudly that DC United will have its permanent home in Washington, D.C. Hey. So I, of course, want to thank the council for its commitment last year. When I was on the council, and many of people standing here were as well, the council approved the ability for the city to negotiate with DC United so that we would be able to deliver a clean site to the team to build its state-of-the-art stadium at Buzzard Point. So I want to thank Chairman Mendelson and all the members of the council. Give them another big round of applause. I would also like to acknowledge my team, who has been very actively involved in this process. John Falchicchio, my chief of staff, City Administrator Rashad Young, but our economic development team, who has really been fighting hard for this project so that we could be here today. Deputy Mayor Brian Kenner is up here somewhere. There's Brian Kenner. The DMPED Chief of Staff, Andrew Trupla, the DMPED Project Manager, Keaton Gada, also our DGS team, Jonathan Kane, my counsel, Mark Tui, and our DMPED General Counsel, Susan Longstreet. And I can't emphasize enough how active the council has been in making sure we get to this point. We also want to thank DC United, and I am pleased that not only will they stay in DC, but they are going to build a state-of-the-art, world-class stadium in the District of Columbia. So this deal has been in the works for many years. Where's Jack? Jack told me that he's heard 3 mayors now say that this stadium was going to happen, and I just want to thank everybody who's been a part of it. In December, we heard loud and clear that the residents of the District of Columbia wanted to separate consideration of the sale of the Frank Reeves Center from consideration for the stadium, and we were able to accomplish that. In March, we wanted also to make sure that stadium construction would consider and include good-paying middle-class jobs that secured a pathway to the middle class for D.C. residents. And I was there when D.C. United and Local 25 signed a labor peace agreement, which was so important for this job to move forward. The development around the stadium, we know, will produce approximately 440 construction jobs, 750 full-time jobs. And the deal will protect the interest of residents by providing better financial protections, clarifying the timeline for development, and strengthening the team's commitment to community engagement. So let it be clear that DC is the sports capital and we're the home of DC United. So vamos, United. So let me just give you a little idea about the timeline. Today, we will deliver a package to the Council of the District of Columbia, which will include the LDA, or the Land Development Agreement between the city and the team. We will also deliver the ground lease for the council's consideration. And then we will deliver today purchase and sale agreements with Pepco, with Mark Ein, and with Super Salvage. We expect, and I'll have the chairman speak to this, that the council will turn its attention to these approvals immediately. We also, in our agreement, includes our commitment to evident site control by September the 30th, and we are on track to do that. The district will then provide the infrastructure and a clean site and be able to deliver it to DC United by next September 1st, 2016. And then the team will turn to building the state-of-the-art stadium, which they expect can take 15 months. So with that, I want to first invite let me first invite Mr. Mendelson, and then we'll hear from the team. Mr. Mendelson?
Thank you.
Yep.
Let me
Thank
give you this.
All right.
Let me just say, there's a photo over there. I don't know if you can all see it, but that looks a lot nicer than the picture I saw tweeted of the same stadium in a cornfield in Iowa or something.
Much nicer.
Much nicer. Yes, Mr. Kenner? There's nothing wrong with Iowa, Mr. Kenner. Illinois. How about Illinois? Yes, Brian Kenner.
Doesn't look like Loudon County.
I didn't mention that. So let me just,
Iowa.
I'm pleased to be standing here with a number of my colleagues. Jack Evans from Ward 2, Brianne Nadeau from Ward 1, Charles Allen from Ward 6, Mary Che from Ward 3, LaRuby May from Ward 8, Brandon Todd from Ward 4, Kenyon McDuffie from Ward 5. And we're all here because, we're very supportive of this project, as is obvious by the fact that the council put through legislation in December that not only approved the legislation authorizing moving forward with this deal, but also put in place the funding so that this deal could go forward. So as we knew then, there were some details that still needed to get nailed down, and I'm very pleased that that's what Mayor Bowser has done. The documents, we haven't received the documents yet, but I've been briefed with regard to them, and I fully expect that the council will move forward. A number of them, I think, are passively approved after a short passage of time. Anything that requires affirmative approval, the council will move quickly. Surely we will do it before our recess, which is July 15th. There's, not only is the council's commitment clear, but there's no reason why at this point we would take any more time than is minimally necessary to go forward in terms of what the council still needs to do for this project. We're looking we're looking very much forward to this project getting what do I say, site control in the ground and then built and opened. So this truly is exciting. Thank you.
And before we turn to the team, actually, I'm going to invite Brian Kenner to come up and speak on behalf of our DIMPED team. Brian Kenner.
From Iowa.
From Iowa.
Nothing wrong with Iowa.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there's nothing wrong with Iowa. So, being an Iowan myself, just wanted to say how happy we are. It truly also does take a village to get many of these things done. Susan Longstreet, Andrew Trueblood, Kate Ngata, Sarosho Padwala, Keiko Yoshino, just some of the people in our office that have touched this project. Lots of folks in the Department of General Services. I see Tom Breidenbaugh back there. Lots of lawyers have been helpful, obviously, in getting this project done. But really, what this speaks to, I think, is the fact that it just solidifies D.C. not only as a sports town and a sports capital, but as a place that provides a number of different amenities for its residents. We want to make sure we have a diversity of opportunities for people to enjoy themselves here in Washington, D.C. Obviously, being a international and cosmopolitan city, soccer tends to take our imagination a little bit. Last year's World Cup was really, I think, fantastic from DC's perspective. Last night they had outdoor for the Women's World Cup. We cannot wait for DC United to win the MLS championship again to bring our sort of attention back there. But really, we're just very happy that we were able to secure DC United for the next 30 or so years, and very much look forward to supporting them and working with them in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm very pleased. I understand that Jason Levian is scurrying over from the Union Station very quickly. He got delayed on the train. But I am very happy that Tom Hunt will speak for the team. And as you know, Tom is the Chief Operating Officer for DC United.
Thank you so much. Yes. It's a fun time to be a soccer fan, to say the least. And I think going back to the mayor's earlier comments, kids playing soccer at an early age keeps them off synthetic drugs. So that's important to get them out there and being active. As we stated yesterday in the mayor's release, this is a significant step forward for DC United and the District of Columbia. And I want to echo the thanks that have been coming to all of the folks that you see in this room. Very happy with the mayor and the city council and the deputy mayor and Brian and Caton and everybody that's been so influential in the process here. And then also on the DC United side with Troy Scott, John Bowker, thank you guys for everything that you did for us. We really appreciate it. This team deserves a new home, and we have the best fans in Major League Soccer, and we have the best community in the nation. And so we're very excited to be getting the land assembled, and we can't wait to break ground. Someone said earlier that it was the construction trucks that people are looking forward to seeing at Buzzard Point. Our fans can't wait to see the moving trucks coming in. So we are very excited to be moving forward, and thank you to everybody. So it's a big step, and a shout out to the women, 3-1 winners yesterday. Go USA! Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here and for supporting this wonderful announcement and for the hard work that's ahead of us. Thank the council once again. Hold on a second.
One thing you didn't mention is the property owned by represented by Chip Ackridge. There's some discussion that if you don't reach that soon, you'll be going to eminent domain, get control of the property. When will that happen?
Well, we are, our approach is to get an agreement among all the property owners, Tom, so we're still pursuing that. We have a deadline to evidence site control by September 30th. And so if we're unable to reach an agreement, then we will avail ourselves of the other opportunity.
To be clear, for those of us who aren't in the negotiating room, does that mean that you have to reach agreement within the next couple of weeks, or do you have to do eminent domain, or how much time do you have to reach an agreement? All the way to September? You have to get control of the land before September?
We would have to have evidence site control by September the 30th. And what that means generally is that we would go, if we had to pursue eminent domain, we would file in court and we would put down a payment based on the assessed value. And at that point, we would have title to the land.
It happens early as next week.
No, I said we had to have site control by September the 30th. But an agreement could happen at any time, so we're willing to listen. Well, I think we were always moving pretty aggressively. I talked to you about our team's approach since I became mayor to work on labor peace, but also to work on the final details that the chairman spoke about. And by the way, that happens with every economic development deal. The council will approve the authority, and then it's up to the executive to iron out the final details. What was important to us is that once the city got in, that the team was in as well, and we believe that some of the finer points have been ironed out in those weeks. Yes.
Describe as best you can the reaction in the building when you heard about the report live in council.
Can I describe the reaction in the building?
The council, your office.
Well, I'll let the council speak to that, but I'll just say this. We all feel pretty confident about how our city compares to outer jurisdictions when it comes to supporting our sports teams. We feel pretty confident that that location, which is close to Metro and close to the DC United's fan base, was the best location in the city. We also knew from what the team told us is that they wanted to be in Washington, D.C. We also know that we put a very competitive, and I should not minimize ever what the taxpayers have been willing to do to make this investment. And so we had a very competitive deal on the table. And we are committed to what that investment means in terms of greater economic development around the site. So I'll let the council members respond.
I'm not sure that there's much more of a response. I think we got word while we were in the middle of our budget deliberations. So we were focused on the budget deliberations. There's no question that the district, as the center of the region, is a logical, I'd say the most logical place for the stadium, and I think all the council members feel that way, and it didn't challenge our thinking on that. We gave the green light back in December. Not just a green light, but funding with the green light. So everything spoke to this going forward, which is, I don't think anybody doubted that we would get to where we are today.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on that basis then for sports, is that the same argument that we made for the Washington Redskins?
Well, I don't think we have an agreement with the Washington football team. I don't think that we have funding for the Washington football team. I don't think we even have a concept at this point. So, no, I don't think you could make the comparison.
Mayor?
The concept applies in my view. Yes.
Is there a chance we talked about any potential additional financial contributions from the district kind of in the statement, talk about cost overruns? Like, how do the deal change from what the council passed and what was sold to the public as, set investment to what the deal says now?
Sure. So let me invite Brian to come up to make sure he can fill in where I leave off. And again, this is not unusual for economic development deals. When the council will approve the broad authority and leave it to the executive to iron out the details, and that's what happened in this case. So the agreement that the council approved did not have any cost sharing for cost overruns for land acquisition. So we negotiated a cost sharing for cost overruns. If anything went over and above what the cap says, then the team and the district would share in those cost overruns. Before that, there was no such cost sharing. It would have been all on the district. Similarly, there was no provision that would have prevented the team from relocating or talking about relocating after the district got in. So it was important to me that once we go out to buy this property, that the team was locked in, and so that now we have an agreement that happens. Also, we have moved up with agreement with the team when the team does its final analysis. There is in the original agreement that says the team does a feasibility analysis. The original agreement had that coming due after we would have purchased the property. So that feasibility analysis is now required before the district is required to purchase the property. The team will also submit its designs, so prior to us transferring the property. We made clear as well, and Brian, if you could jump in on some of the community benefits agreements, especially as it relates to the commitment to girls' sports.
Sure, thank you. The mayor actually mentioned just about all of the, she actually mentioned all of the sort of differences between pre and post. I think even DC United's press release yesterday sort of spoke to the fact that I think our efforts were always focused around, and the mayor charged us with focusing around making sure that we get the best deal from the district taxpayer perspective, and so no additional money was a part of the discussions and part of the negotiations which we were able to secure. On the community benefits side, we were able to add some language that was specific to more gender neutral language around some of the services, soccer academy and so forth, that will be applied to both men and women for DC United. I know that they've had a tremendous commitment in the past to both boys and girls sports, and so I think that really just continues through that.
Mayor Balzer, could you give an update on your on any talks that you're having with the Redskins? I know that you were supposed to connect by phone with Dan Snyder. I don't know if that's happened yet. And can you just tell us if there are any talks or negotiations going on in terms of renting the stadium for them?
Well, I don't think that anything has changed since the last time we spoke. We have made it clear to the team that we're interested to talk to them about their needs. I should have mentioned that we have some of our Events DC staff who's been home to DC United at RFK. I know they're happy for them, but also looking to the future, they're concerned about an empty RFK. And so Events DC is currently developing scenarios of how RFK could be developed, either with a stadium or without a stadium. With a stadium, with other ancillary uses. So that's where we are, and I don't have anything additional to report with regard to talks with the team.
Have you gotten any feedback from the team about whether they're happy that you, A, are seem more open to them returning to the city, and B, are actually entertaining your team?
Well, I've always been open to the team returning to the city, so that's not news. And I think that, yeah, that's not news. That's all I'll say. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on that, what is your position on the teammate right now? It seems like you sort of backed away from saying it, or maybe saying where are you at?
I think it's offensive. No, those are the questions. This is a press conference that everybody said we're going to have.
General question. General.
Okay, are we still in the stadium? Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about how, what this says about regional competition at this point in time? Any lessons learned here about other folks in the region trying to approach?
Well, the lesson I learned is that the District of Columbia compares very favorably to our surrounding counties. And with all things being equal, businesses will choose the District of Columbia. I actually had this conversation with myself this morning. And I said how lucky I am to be the mayor of the District of Columbia that can be able to say that. And it's a lot of leaders have worked to put the district in that position. That when businesses, when people, people, when families are thinking about where they can locate in this region, more and more they're going to choose the District of Columbia. We're making our business environment more favorable. We have a vibrant nightlife. We're investing in our infrastructure, and there is a reason why people are calling us the coolest city. And so we're going to continue to be out and be the first choice of families and businesses around this region. But let me turn to Jack to see if he wants to add anything.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And good morning, everything. The first thing I would like to add that even at my age, I can still palm a ball. See, that's important. Look at that, huh? Yeah, well, it's a small ball, but that's all right, Mary. You didn't have to point that out, that it's not a basketball, but it is a ball. It's not a baseball either, so tennis ball. First, I want to congratulate the mayor and her staff on what I believe now is the final deal for soccer. Give them a big round of applause. This is really a great day. And as the mayor mentioned, I had conversations about going back with Mayor Fenty, Mayor Gray. We now have a deal, and I understand that Jason is in the house somewhere. Over here, and congratulations to Jason, who we've been dealing with forever on this as well. This is a real good deal. It's a real good deal for the District of Columbia. It's a real good deal for DC United, and I'm really looking forward to getting the stadium built. We've built the Verizon Center in record time, the baseball stadium in record time. I'm sure we can do this here with the soccer stadium, be ready for the first game in March of 2018. And it's just a little trivia. You probably saw this in the paper. There's 12 cities in the country that have 5 sports located, and they're not necessarily in the city, but in the metropolitan region, and we are one of those. And there's only 2 cities in the country that have 5 sports actually located in the boundaries of the city. And I'll leave you with this. Can you name those 2 cities? So thank you very much. The district is going to be a part of that one of these days, and this is a really, really exciting time for the District of Columbia. Thank you.
What are the 2 cities?
Oh, that's you have to
He doesn't know.
Which one? Anybody can guess one? No, Chicago. And what's the other? And you'll never guess. Denver.
Well, very good. So, Jason, we've been talking about you, and Tom has represented the team well, but I wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to make any comments. Jason Levian.
Thanks very much. I want to thank Mayor Bowser for all her hard work on this project, from her time in the council to her time as mayor-elect to her time as the mayor. She's shown great leadership. Her team, including the deputy mayor, her chief of staff, everybody involved has worked very hard on this project to make it come to fruition. And certainly, like any project, there are hurdles along the way, but they were very focused on attacking those hurdles, and we're deeply appreciative as well certainly to Councilman Evans and the entire council for their leadership on this issue. And we've been in close contact with them throughout the process, and we're anxious to move forward. Certainly, part of this is showing the resiliency to get through a process like this. It's a complicated deal. It's taken some twists and turns, but there's been a real trust level and a level of communication that has allowed us to move this forward. And we're deeply appreciative, and we want to thank our fans, first and foremost, who have come to our support time and time again, who are helping us as we're in first place this year again in the Eastern Conference and have been behind us, and we're looking forward to many exciting days ahead. So thank you very much for coming out, and hopefully our next press conference is at a groundbreaking.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Terrific.
All right.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, members of the council. I am going to stand for now any general questions. Thank you all very much. I should say we're joined by the Chief of Police, the Deputy Mayor for Human Services, Eric Shaw from Planning, LaQuandra Nesbitt, the Director of Health, Melinda Bowling, the DCRA Director, and the City Administrator, and the Deputy City Administrator. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, I'll invite Kevin to come up. And one of the accrediting agencies who we asked to do an audit of the lab, we've had them in to talk to us, and I think their visit is either imminent or it has happened, where we will receive any additional recommendations. We have interim leadership at the lab, and we are recruiting for its permanent director. We are currently using outside agency to conduct all of our DNA analysis. Kevin.
The name of the lab that we are working with to do DNA testing is Bodie Labs, which is a local lab that does DNA work for a number of different law enforcement organizations.
Who's next? Yes, Will?
So next month, council's having a hearing on the cost of school modernization. A lot of council members have said about the increasing costs as well as retroactive work order changes that we have to approve after the already spent. Are you happy with the cost right now, or are you necessarily taking a look at potential overrun?
We're taking a look at DGS in its entirety and how the DGS does its work. And I have been concerned about cost and change orders at DGS for a number of years as a council member. I don't think that there has been any dramatic increase in the 5 months that I've been mayor, but I do recognize that the way that DGS, we're looking at the way that the DGS does work in figuring out if we can find more efficiencies. We're also concerned about procurements and them being true at the beginning so that there are not changes and big changes throughout the process. Yes.
Here's the council that plans to vote tomorrow on the second time on the budget. In some ways, but do you intend to submit the budget to the president's report for Congress? That kind of sidestep or
Well, I know that the council is considering how it is going to respond. As you know, I'm a big supporter of the strategy of having budget autonomy as something that the residents of the District of Columbia voted for overwhelmingly. I also am a big proponent of doing something differently to get more autonomy for the residents of the District of Columbia. So my first duty is to make sure that we have an approved budget. We have been in a constant discussion with our legal team, and I know the council is doing the same. The Congress will definitely receive our budget. Well, the council chairman is going to, as he does, he will submit the packages once I sign them. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, for those who don't know your position on this, would you please clarify, do you or do you not support the Exelon-Pepco merger?
I think that the merger as it's presented is tough. And I'm not sure that the company has made the case that it's in the public's best interest. So you know that one of our agencies, the Department of the Environment, was a party and submitted on behalf of the government a lot of questions that the Public Service Commission must consider. And so we think it's tough. We think there's a few specific issues around rates. We would like, and we know that the Public Service Commission has to be able to say what a merger would do in the near and long term to rates in the District of Columbia. We know that there's some questions around what a merger would mean for reliability. Would, in fact, this merger mean that we would have more reliable utility service? So the company has to make that case. And the Public Service Commission would have to demonstrate how, if it allowed the merger to take place, how reliability goals and sustainability goals would be protected and incentivized in such an agreement. I know a lot of the surrounding jurisdictions have talked about the community benefits packages that they have on the table and what they would mean for consumers. I've been concerned that those benefits, so-called benefits, are too spread out over too long a period of time. So I think that any benefits package that the Public Service Commission would consider would have to show how it would immediately impact DC residents. More than that, any community benefits package would have to demonstrate that the district is getting its fair share. We're not New Jersey, we're not Delaware. So what would the package reflect in terms of our actual market share? And I think that would be hugely important. A lot of people, and including me, are concerned about having a company that's not in our area. So I've been to any number of meetings where people have complained ad nauseum about Pepco. But the fact is, it is the Pepco that's here and ours. We know how it works. We know how to interact with it. We know how it interacts with the Public Service Commission. So I would also think that the Public Service Commission would have to demonstrate how a merged company could also be a local company focused on local jobs and focused on being responsive to DC residents. So I don't think the president, the long answer to your question, but the proposals as it stands needs a lot of work.
So the zoning commission yesterday voted to restrict pop-ups and condo conversions in a lot of neighborhoods, including many of the affordable you represent. Now, you've made affordable housing a big part of your administration's focus, and plenty of people have argued that condo conversions, pop-ups bring more housing units to the city versus having just a single-family home. Do you have any thought on what the zoning commission did? Would you rather not see the restrictions in place?
Well, there needed to be some restrictions put in place, and the Zoning Commission, as you know, is the independent agency that can modify zoning uses in the district. So I want to spend some time looking at what it approved. If it's in line with what the Office on Planning recommended, then I think that we're on the right track. But we'll spend some time looking at what was reviewed. Now, what I know that we have to address is that there could be any number of permit seekers who are trying to figure out what that means for them. Likewise, communities are trying to figure out what that means to them. So I want to make sure we work with Melinda and Eric Shaw, who are here, who are the directors of the agencies, who are going to have to do a lot of work around making sure that communities and any impacted property owners understand what the changes are. Yes, Abigail.
Aside from consulting with police chief and other district authorities and council members, could you talk a little bit about the specific ideas or plans that you have in the works to combat synthetic revenues?
Yes, we believe that there should be harsher penalties and stronger enforcement ability for retailers who break the law. And so some of the things that we would consider, that we are considering, but of course we will work with the members of the council, is if the chief should have the ability to assess whether a retailer is breaking the law and issue a temporary shutdown of that retailer while we investigate the incident. Yes, sir.
And it seems as though we're seeing a spike in synthetic drug use. Do you see a correlation between the fact that marijuana laws here in the district are kind of languishing in need of congressional approval, and the fact that there isn't access to legal marijuana and synthetic drugs?
I don't know that I would make that leap. I don't know if you want to add anything, Chief. I don't think that we have any evidence that would lead us to make that leap. Yep.
Can you and ideally the chief as well talk about some of the violence that we saw over the weekend, 2 quadruple stabbings in 2 days, at least 10 people stabbed by Metro Police's data, I guess, as of yesterday. Homicides are up about 8.5%. Is violent crime right now compared to last year up in the city?
I think we're up 5% with the number of homicides. And yes, we're very concerned about it. Any level of violence or certainly homicide, you don't want to see in the city. And so we're attacking it, of course, in a couple of ways. And I'll invite the deputy mayor up in a second to talk about our summer initiatives. And then I'll ask the chief to come up to talk about any redeployment efforts.
Thanks, Mayor. The mayor on Saturday announced our whole summer activities, which we're calling Fresh Summer, which is focused on family, recreation, education, employment, safety, and health. And we certainly have a rich array of activities for kids of all ages, and certainly a robust summer employment program. We also have evening events. We're focused on family activities for the weekend, so that all the agencies have come together to ensure that there are just numerous activities for young people and their families to participate in, to give them positive alternatives to crime. We're doing a number of evening events and just rolling activities all throughout the city and filling in the gaps. That's a strategy that has worked in the past. We're focused on key public police districts where there are more acts of crime. And in the past, when we have done that, we have seen reductions in crime. So we're taking that strategy, we're amping it up, and we feel really confident that we're going to be able to deter people from crime and offer them positive activities. Yes, ma'am.
So additionally, all of our kids are about to be out of school. We'll have about 16,000 young people start the summer youth program on June the 29th. We will have all of our pools and recreation centers open. We will offer about 18,000 free meals at sites, I think 86 sites throughout the District of Columbia. So any kid 18 years or younger can arrive at one of those facilities for free breakfast, lunch, and a supper or take-home snack. So we have a lot of activities and initiatives out in the summer months. We also want to pay attention and direct more people to incidents of domestic violence, any partner violence, intimate partner violence, or intra-family violence. You referenced an incident over the weekend where 4 people were stabbed, 1 was killed, and this was an intra-family incident that happened inside. So these, we want to make sure that all of our community members can help identify when a family needs some help before we see this type of violence. So we're also going to push that out as far and wide as we can. So let me invite the chief up to talk about deployment strategies.
Thank you. Actually, fantastic, and really that is our biggest issue. When we have spikes like we've seen really in the last couple of weeks, 2 little spikes that popped up, it's always a concern. We try and get ahead of those so that it doesn't happen. But year to date, overall violent crime is down and non-fatal shootings are down. What we really are struggling with is violence in the home. And the mayor said it perfectly. Really, there are a lot of people in the community that not all domestic violence is predictable. There are cases such as what happened this past weekend where there's no indicators. It is something that there was no warning signs, no indicators. But for many of those cases, there are indicators, and we ask community members and family members to reach out and try and get some help. There are a lot of advocate organizations in this city that will provide counseling and other safe alternatives to try and help keep that domestic or interfamily disputes turning to violence. So the summer programs, as mentioned by the deputy mayor, the entire government's focused on families. This has been the single driver for us in the past few years on violent crime and homicides in particular, increase after increase after increase in domestic violence. So we really have to focus on community members looking out for neighbors and people reaching out and getting help. You can always reach out to MPD. We will connect you with service providers if you need some help with family issues. But I think our focus this summer on not just individuals or not just kids or not just neighborhoods, but on families throughout the community of Washington, D.C., that's going to be key for us in keeping this a nice, safe summer.
A little bit about some of the challenges that you guys have from an enforcement perspective in dealing with the use of dirt bikes and ATVs and crimes. I know around where Charlize Milton was held, there was a lot of concern in that community and frustration with the fact that there are so many of these illegally on the roads, and there's not necessarily a whole lot that can be done in terms of pursuing and getting them off the road. Can you talk a little bit about some of the issues you guys encounter with that?
There are. I mean, we've been pretty effective. We have confiscated about 35 of the ATVs and dirt bikes in the past 90 days. But the frustrating part, especially for the community members who see them when they are out riding around, is they want us to pursue them right then and there and take them off the street. And that, as you can imagine, is very dangerous for everybody involved. It's dangerous for the riders, but it's also dangerous for the general public. We've already had some of these riders collide with pedestrians, collide into cars. So for the police to pursue them is not the safest option for us to do. But what we are doing is we are getting information from our community members about where these bikes are being stored, where they're being housed, and also from our partners in the business community about where they're being gassed up. So our safest option is to impound those vehicles and take them off the street in a safe way and not to create additional harm going forward.
As you go towards the summer, and you've seen the video most recent, the pool party where the police officer acted aggressively with the young teenagers. Do you have any special orders out to police officers this summer about keeping their cool and diffusing situations, not making them work?
Well, I think that the one thing that we really are focusing on, and we're going to be announcing a couple of initiatives in MPD the next couple of weeks, is we're focusing our officers specifically on the violent crimes that impact our communities most. And anything that can be dealt with through other government agencies, other government services that do not require a police officer, we want to work with our partner agencies to divert to those other agencies, because not everything that police officers are called for are something that police officers are needed for. And so, we want to make sure going forward that we have that strong partnership and that police officers are not being used to handle things that are really not a police officer's function. So I don't have to, hopefully we'll not have to give my officers any order to treat the public respectfully. They're expected to do that every day in every circumstance.
One more question, guys. Chief, are these synthetic drugs? I mean, is this more like synthetic marijuana, like bath salt, or is there just no marijuana?
Well, there's a combination of different things and different ways that it's being used, but I think a lot of people have in their mind, parents ask me all the time, what does it look like? Does it look like marijuana? And the answer largely is no, it does not. It's being marketed as bath salts. Some of it's white crystalline type substance. Some of it is being marketed as incense and has more of a natural look to it, but it's a variety, and some of it's liquid. It is extremely dangerous, and the more the chemical compounds change, the more dangerous it is. Department of Health has a fantastic way of describing how these different heavy metals and compounds can impact the brain, but what we're seeing right now with the adults that are using is very dangerous reaction, very serious, and we're fearful now. We want to make sure we go after this aggressively because we don't want the kids getting into the use of this substance that we're seeing right now.
Chief, very quickly, could you address the investigation Woodland Drive? Your guys are still out there. Any update on the investigation? The affidavits make others, still no additional arrests. It's almost been a month now.
So the case right now is still very active, a lot of investigative work being done, but it is now in the hands of the criminal justice system. And so for us to comment on the case further right now would just put our case in jeopardy. So we're not going to make any additional comments on the case. We are still working very diligently with prosecutors. I can't comment on that right now.
Okay, yes, Aaron.
We spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill in the first couple months in office and talking to lawmakers. We're reaching the point now where the district's budget will start to work its way through the appropriation process there. Do you have any expectation of what this legislative building will do in the course of some of the riders, guns, abortion topics that we're running?
Well, our first ask is that we want our budget to go through clean, and so I usually, in most of my conversations with that request, and if the lawmakers what I ask at minimum is that they alert and talk through any issues that they have with the district, so that there may be some questions that can be easily ironed out. But we make it clear that we have a locally elected council. Its laws should be respected, and the people that DC residents elect should be the only ones making laws for the district.
Harris, who's projecting himself and inserting himself in various solutions. Have you sought to speak to them?
I've sought to speak to the leadership of the committees that affect the District of Columbia.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.